Y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. Be real big, I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' kids.
Hi, I'm Daniel.
I'm Sara.
And this is now the Dealmakers podcast because most of you guys can't spell acquisitive. I'm not going to hold it against you.
Well, it's a made-up word. I mean, for spelling bee purposes.
No, it is in the dictionary. It is a real word. Thank you
Is
very
it?
much. Yes, it's a
Webster
it's a real
defines
word.
acquisitive as our podcast that we created.
No, anyway. So, yeah, your fault, not ours. We changed it to Dealmakers. It's cooler anyway. I like it. On the Dealmakers podcast, we bring on Dealmakers. We're going to interview Dealmakers who have completed acquisitions or are M&A experts, so we can talk about all the things that can go wrong, all the red flags to look out for, and teach you how to avoid them. Today we have Zack Toyota, a entrepreneur, business developer, an amazing background. I can't wait to hear it all again and to go deeper. But Zack is the acquirer and CEO of SelfDisrpt, and we're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
How did you get started? What made you decide to get into acquisitions?
I don't have a traditional education in finance or business or anything like that. I went to Florida State University and got my degree in criminal justice. So I thought I was going to be a cop. And along the way, I just got involved in nightlife and got blessed to learn the business side of that. And I was extremely intrigued and mainly intrigued by all the different ways folks are figuring out how to make money. And I'm so, dead set on this salary career. There's nothing wrong with it, but it has a cap. So I wouldn't say I'm an M&A expert, but I am an expert in being really scrappy and resourceful and being creative in the ways that I figured it out. So I like to say that I have a self-baked business education. And over the last decade, I've cut my teeth in call centers, disruptive startups and emerging industries, and most recently in private equity consulting. And where it all started was in my early 20s. I was working with these startups that were going through acquisitions or going through some sort of deal flow. And I got insights into the integration side of either bringing in a new business and how to integrate the technology, and or just being a fly on the wall for these conversations on the leadership team discussing the whole deal. And again, fascinating. And I was dead set on, I want to do a deal. I need to figure this out. I think that's where my passion is. I've been in all these different sectors and I seem to be able to figure it out. So let's do this myself. And obviously I'm young and I have an opinion and I think I'm the best thing ever. At the time, when you're early in your 20s, I haven't got beaten up enough yet. But what I did figure out was with my free time, I could work at night, and I wanted to do something that people weren't willing to do. And I had that just like beaten in my head over and over for a month or two until I discovered cleaning. I should just start cleaning offices or find a cleaning businesses that's after hours. And that's what I went and did. And it was super easy. Anybody can do it. I was able to figure out how to, own and operate that business. And it wasn't, again, as simple as, hey, I called around and found somebody willing to exit. It was, I called around all the local competitive businesses who I'm essentially their newest competitor. And I said, hey, I'm this guy. I'm new in town. I'm small fish. Do you have any accounts you hate? Or any accounts that you just want to offload? I'd love to take them off your hands. I'll work you in. I'll give you some sort of commission, but keep me in mind. No harm, no foul. I just want you to know I'm around. And there was an actual a local business who was actually winding down their commercial cleaning operations, and they gifted me essentially 10 accounts that I worked on. That sucked, by the way. They're their 10 worst accounts. And I learned on the fly for 2 years, every single night. That's all I did. I skipped holidays. My family didn't see me. And I was just dead set on I'm going to grow this business and go roll up a couple local cleaning businesses. And I didn't achieve the roll up. And I ultimately ended up becoming very burnt out. And because I was trying to do everything. But it led me to discovering search funds. And search funds was this ability to go and find a sponsor who believes in me, who's going to go pay for me to go buy a business together. And I was like, great idea. Just, find somebody who wants to bet on Zack Toyota. And I learned, again, very quickly, I had no traditional background. I didn't come from Goldman Sachs or, some hedge fund, and no sponsor was willing to bet on me just yet because I did a commercial cleaning company. They're like, hey man, kudos to you. You took out the trash, but that's not going to convince us just yet. So, I ended up going back and just figuring out through actually leveraging LinkedIn, how to get that experience. And I found this emerging hedge fund in South Florida that was willing to bring me on the marketing side and the investor relations side. And I got a crash course in deal flow and deal origination and you name it. And throughout that time, I had my ears to the street and a lot of opportunities came my way. And I discovered micro SaaS acquisitions that applied all these search funds principles, all these principles of due diligence and deal flow through private equity, but I didn't have to raise $1 million to do it. So I was instantly sold, and I went and found a deal in the micro SaaS space, and that's what I've been up to for the past year. So in a long-winded way, that's me the past decade and where I've come from. I was a glorified janitor to here I am now running and owning and operating a portfolio of companies.
What happened to the cleaning company?
I exited it to somebody very similar to me who was coming into the market. A few of the businesses were closing down, so they no longer needed the service. Full transparency, didn't do an amazing job organically growing new accounts. I just managed the book I was gifted. And throughout that time, I ended up offloading that to somebody else who was coming on and hanging around for 12 months, making sure they didn't crash the bus, basically acting as a therapist. And then, once he had his feet in the ground, he was off and running, and I left him, there.
I'm very interested in this micro SaaS acquisition thing, but I think if our listeners, they probably would like to hear your view of the janitorial commercial cleaning type of industry. Because a lot of people, I get calls a lot from people who are, writing LOIs right now in that industry. Is it, you have, I'm from East Tennessee and we do a lot of caving there called like spelunking, but you've spelunked the industry. You have found all of the bats and weird cave features. What would you think? What would you say to somebody who is looking to acquire in that space?
You have to be really open to doing the work and effectively build a mental callus of doing that work and just owning that, because a cleaning business is the ultimate get it done job. If you don't do a good job, you will get a phone call in the morning and they're not calling to tell you, hey, the bathroom looks great. You'll never get that call, but you will get a call when things don't look so good. So you just have to execute, and it's simple, stupid. It's taking out the trash and doing the small things right. But you just build this cadence or this momentum. And I'm a big believer in inertia, but you build this momentum of just doing it every day, doing the hard work where anything else just doesn't matter. I just took out the trash and cleaned up the toilets. What's next? It doesn't really get worse from here.
I have so much passion for how you got into that business. That resonates so much with me. When I went from bail bonds to accounting, I did the same exact thing. My thought was I was a solopreneur, I was a small business owner. My accountant never answered the phone. They didn't want to give me the time of day. So I called accountants when I was getting into it and said, hey, do you have a whole bunch of small businesses that, the billables aren't very high. It's not really worth your time. Let me take them. I'll help them out. And then getting into business brokerage, same thing. I tell the brokers in my office all the time, like, hey, somebody's making you pull your hair out, send them my way. Let me learn on those.
And it's the beauty of asking the question. Sometimes people just get scared or don't have the wherewithal. I shouldn't say that, but for some reason they don't take action on just asking. Ask around. If it's embarrassing you for whatever reason, you have to get over that. If you want to be a business owner and an operator, there's a lot of things you're not going to be an expert at. You just got to figure it out. You're basically the best project manager on the planet until you really get your arms around the business, because you're working with so many different, facets of the business while you're providing value in your area of expertise. But yeah, it starts with you just have to ask that question.
Do you think there are deals to be made in, commercial cleaning, janitorial services? Do you think you can grow those and roll up and
100%. A lot of them, mainly because of the fact that they're not sexy, quote unquote. There's not often a succession plan, and sometimes the businesses aren't big enough for private equity to care. So there is some sort of handoff at some point, and it's either a waiting game or you find a motivated seller who wants a quote unquote mentee to, kind of bring along with them to guide their baby and through the next wave or the next generation. And there's tons of those out there, mainly because the kids these days aren't growing up saying, hey, I want to start a cleaning business. It's just not happening.
It's true. I think a lot about the arbitrage of enthusiasm that investment is, because when you're young, you have enthusiasm and no money. And when you're older, you've lost your enthusiasm, but you have the money. So you invest in a younger person who has
That's why
the
search funds
enthusiasm.
exist.
Yeah, it's
Precisely.
enthusiasm arbitrage. And I'm not clear where I am in that spectrum, but I'm definitely waning. So I hope I have investor money soon, because otherwise it's a mess. But when you do have that enthusiasm and you are young and pie in the sky, that's not your first go-to. So it is, you're looking at the kind of sexier, less boring business types. So you do have to find that precipice of somebody who's been around enough to have realized the potential and appreciate it, but still has all of that enthusiasm and energy to stay up all night cleaning and taking out the trash like you described.
There's an aspect, especially these days with everything online, that's really glamorous and instant gratification. And these are the type of businesses that just don't get that recognition or don't get that marketability or big push, to put it in front of. I could probably Google this right now. There's probably 50 to 100 commercial cleaning businesses here in Fort Lauderdale, Miami-Dade area. I don't see any of their ads on Instagram. There's probably a good reason for that, but it's just not coming across my desk. It's probably not coming across others' desks. So it's just a matter of, go sniff it out. There's businesses out there, and my number one goal was I need to find something I could do at night. And that's how it all started. What can I do at night? I don't want to be a security guard. I don't want to buy a security guard business. What's easy? And as I'm doing this lady's in my office making a ton of noise, and I'm like, oh my God.
That's fantastic. And then you went immediately from that into, this micro SaaS, which is one of those things you see when we talk tons about the influencer, buy a small business and run it from your yacht. And usually that doesn't have anything to do with commercial cleaning companies, but often people are like, pick up some micro SaaS companies. So are you on a yacht right now?
No, I'm sitting in my office doing the same thing I was doing, 10 years ago, just grinding it out and keeping my head down. It's so cliche, but I'm a big believer in just staying at bat and swinging away. You're going to have your strikeouts, your singles, you're going to get your home runs, but you just got to stick around and understand that it's a everyday process. And it's the same thing with the cleaning business, day over day, discipline, and that stuff compounds in a big way. And you have to, make yourself the hero of your own story, unless you're just one of those people who glorifies or puts it out on Instagram, your story. That's cool. But for me, it's, as long as I'm here every day showing up, I feel really good about I'm moving in the right direction and I will get my big pop. And throughout this entire time, I'm getting nothing but an amazing experience, which is, you can't teach that. You have to go through it every day.
And that's why I have so much respect for you, Zach, and that's why I wanted to have you on. That's why I enjoy all of the conversations that we have, because there's no shortage of like influencers out there, especially in tech, that talk about the wins and really hold themselves out there as being this guru, this expert, and everything I've ever seen you in, you're like, I'm in the trenches, I'm still doing the work, and I don't know. I feel like that's your personality, like to get in there and build something that hasn't been built before.
I particularly enjoy it. I like seeing things evolve in front of me from idea to, operating. I get a crazy amount of satisfaction from that, and doing it over and over in new industries, I get even more like from early days, I'm just naturally so curious in how everything works. And when I see a bigger goal or a bigger target, I'm like, oh yeah, I just can't sleep at night. I want to keep, running for the next thing. And my mentor gave me a book called The Second Mountain, excuse me, because he's like, this is your personality in a nutshell. You're just mountain 1, 2. You just always are going for that, your second mountain. So he's like, I'm so curious to see in 50 years where you land. I'm not a fan of your business, but I'm a fan of Zack Toyota. So keep it going. I'm like, all right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, that's so much more significant. But how did you, I don't have a ton of experience in the SaaS acquisition space. And I always assumed the deals that I have done have been so niche, and it's, people working already in the industry, and it's, enterprise software that they have built for a specific thing, and, everybody seems to understand it, and I do the legal part. But you didn't come from a SaaS background that I'm hearing. How did you even get interested in this, and how did you vet it? How would you ever know what a good deal was?
My due diligence process in the beginning could have been done on the back of a napkin. It was, I found something online, or somebody provided me their process, but I treated it like a list. And this is, my advice to anyone out there, and this was a big learning experience, was due diligence is purely about finding red flags. It is not a checklist. And I made the mistake of treating it like a checklist in the beginning because I didn't know any better. And I didn't have legal around me to guide me. I was asking the wrong questions more than likely. And so I learned fast that it has to be, identify red flags, sniff that out. Then what's your thesis to grow? Sniff that out, because you don't want to lose enthusiasm. But you have to go right away into risk assumptions and basically spend a whole weekend poking holes in your new balloon. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it's okay. I still feel good about this. I don't want to kill it. Let's find operating leverage and dive in. And it's really quick. 1, 2, keep it simple, stupid. I like to operate that way because I don't have that traditional education. So I have to find ways that are effective, but I'm not drowning in spreadsheets that I don't understand, if that makes sense.
Risk assumption. I love that. I love that phrase. We talk about risk assessment all the time, but I see so many people who are so excited to do a deal, so eager to get into a deal that, they'll explain away, make excuses, overlook, but not make those risk assumptions and get into bad deals.
I started the briefest startup a million years ago that was shoe repair by mail, and lost enthusiasm almost immediately when I found a single competitor. Like just one. I mean, I was in my early 20s, and I reflect on that, and I'm like, there was one competitor. It was a blue ocean of, and these guys were completely different. But how do you vet the competition when you're looking at a SaaS product and you're not steeped in SaaS all the time?
Well, for me, I built a scorecard. I knew what I wanted. And so to quickly backtrack, I didn't dive right into SaaS. I ended up, when I sold off the cleaning business, the company I was working for during the day got acquired. So I had a lot of time on my hands all of a sudden. And because I was getting my teeth kicked in on search funds, and, I'm on LinkedIn all day long trying to find mentors and river guides, anyone who could help me. And they're like, you don't have the background, what's your degree in? Just have you ever run a business? All the normal stuff they should be asking. It's their money I'm asking for and their time. So I just didn't have good answers. So I was like, I need to find the answers, or I need to find the experience. So I did a crash course it was a hedge fund here in South Florida that was doing real estate development deals. So I spent 2 years doing that, but I was leveraging LinkedIn so much that I was like, I'm spending way too much time on LinkedIn poking around on their profiles. It's effective, but my whole job has turned into this LinkedIn guy in the corner. So I went and looked for tools to help me and to help expedite my process. And I came across a few companies I really liked. And fast track 2 years later, at a charity golf event that we threw through that firm, one of the gentlemen came up to me. He's like, hey, we've known each other through LinkedIn. I used to be with this company. I came home and I started my own thing. And I was like, love it. Let's talk. And he basically created a micro SaaS firm. He'd been operating for a year. It was a young team. They needed an operating partner pretty badly and just didn't know it. And they also didn't really know what they were sitting on. I had a good feeling that if we combined forces with what I was just able to achieve on LinkedIn, with them expediting this process, it was just this aha moment. So it fell in my lap. I didn't have to go do a lot of vetting. I just really, really knew what I wanted because I personally was using something like this every day to help myself buy back hours or take back hours in my own day. So I instantly knew the value and felt I could sell this thing with a lot of integrity because I was personally using it and I personally believed in things like this.
And Daniel and I know what your product is, but can you explain it?
Software platform called SelfDisrpt. It's an omni-channel sales and engagement platform. So it's a really fancy way of saying we help automate your outreach process on LinkedIn, email, text, dialer, you name it. So effectively you can go and just manage your pipeline, take demos or qualify these opportunities while the software is in the background running and finding these opportunities or helping grow your network so that you can go ahead and populate more opportunities. So you can either leverage it for the sales side, leverage it for building your network. I've seen people leverage it for raising capital, selling their business, buying businesses, finding board members, and just strictly deal flow. So it really has become, an all-in-one tool to help accelerate startups, to help accelerate agencies, and anybody who's a disruptive founder who wants to carve out their market share on the internet. We can help them quickly achieve that with this technology.
It has been a game changer because, and I wholeheartedly believe what you said, that when you're selling, it's so much easier to sell something that you need, that you are using, but then something that you really truly believe in.
Yeah.
And man, I was spending hours on LinkedIn manually searching profiles, looking into people, liking, commenting. When I discovered you guys, really early on, I'm super fortunate to have kind of gotten in the early days. It was a game changer from day one, and I'm excited about all the new features coming out.
Awesome. I love it.
You were really bullish on LinkedIn early. It sounds like you were doing this a while ago when most people were looking at LinkedIn as like a resume site.
Yeah.
So
for old people.
Yeah. So what was it about LinkedIn that stood out to you as this opportunity, as this space, and how'd you get into that early?
So a funny story. I was at a startup who couldn't find how to market. And I pitched the founder hey, we should just make a LinkedIn and let me kind of go crazy with it. And he's like, yeah, whatever, you're wasting your time. And it brought in some good amount on the revenue side. Nothing to go waving my flag, but I had this aha moment. And as I was transitioning out of that job into this new disruptive space, which was cannabis, I found out within the first month, as I'm poking around, hey, why aren't we marketing on Facebook? Why don't we have an Instagram? Why don't we have this? They're like, oh, we get banned, man. We get shut down fast. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so after, I got my feet wet there, I invested in my own dollars I called it CBD Toyota. And I basically did reels before they were reels, a talking head of educating people about CBD and cannabinoids and not selling anything or ever mentioning weed or cannabis, just education. And the page blew up. It was, growing faster than the company page. They brought me to meeting and they're like, who are you? What are you doing? Because at the time they brought anyone in for commission only sales. And I cold called my way into that job, by the way. I just showed up and they never asked me to leave. So that's a whole nother story. But they're like, hey, what's this CBD Toyota thing? What are you doing? And I explained it to them and they're like, oh, whoa, we didn't know we could get away with that. And I was like, hey, you guys should try it on LinkedIn. And they're like, do it. Start the company page, take over the founders pages. And within a month, we found a high-risk merchant processor, which was super hard to find at the time in cannabis. We did $50 million through that company that year. So it was a big deal that we locked that in. We found multiple partners, including, getting into CVS, finding partners for lobbying because we helped write a bill for the state of Florida for the hemp farm bill. Just a lot of tremendous, massive things to help pave this way for this industry, all coming through LinkedIn. So I'm married to this thing by now. I believe in it. I know we can do it. But it was because of how effective it was for cannabis principles and how we were able to just own the whole cannabis market and CBD and hemp for 2 years on LinkedIn. And I really mean that. We were dominating. You couldn't go on without seeing a post from one of our founders or from the company. It was insane. I was set. And now it has 1 billion users. So it's just a platform of decision makers or industry experts or people who are up and coming or a talent pool. It's endless. If you can't figure out how to find one good person to talk to on LinkedIn, you're doing it wrong. And you should hit me up.
It's a good endorsement for LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Our new sponsor.
Toyota says it. The guy, not the car company. So
yeah. Don't get sued. I was just wondering if Toyota, the car company, has ever taken issue with your using your own.
I tried to start a Toyota Ventures. I submitted it to the state of Florida. I'm like, it takes 30 days for those things to get processed. I found out in 48 hours. They're like, shut it down. Not happening. Where do you live? Prove that's your real name. I was like, whoa, okay. We're going to go with a different name here.
Yeah. I would imagine it would go that way. as a
Yeah.
lawyer.
They sneezed on me and shut that down really fast.
So LinkedIn is now much, much more popular than it was. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that you can target and connect with the ideal people, opportunities that you would want. But now that's there's been like an over adjustment. I get inundated every single day, sales message after sales message. And there's a catchphrase that you guys use, and yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure exactly if it's part of the content or if it's like actually part of your brand. But you at scale. I think it's such a cool concept when so many people are like, AI commenting or, AI messaging or, spam messaging. Um, how can people today and, May 2024 leverage LinkedIn at scale, but without getting screened as just another, kind of spam salesperson?
I ask myself that a lot because this is my niche and product, and sometimes it is frowned upon. So I have to be an advocate and evangelist at certain times, and it's a bummer because it really is an effective tool if you're not spamming people. So I would say right off the bat, don't pitch slap people. If you just send someone this, a link to your Calendly first message, they don't even know you. That's weird. So at SelfDisrpt, what sets us apart is we've spent so much time on LinkedIn, me coming from the side of managing founders' profiles. So it's like all about their voice and reputation and tone. And then my partner who created a technology to accelerate all this outreach. So combining the two, we're just so particular about protecting the client's profile that we literally onboard them. You can't just sign up and use the tool. You have to go through an onboarding. We help you set up your campaigns. We help you set up the cadence. We give you the best practices, and we really, really recommend you stick to it because one, you're going to see results, but it's also, we don't want our name associated with somebody just blasting everybody and their mother out there. So it's kind of a white glove hand holding process that we've been able to create assets and a video course and all these things to surround that. So it's a little less labor intensive on our end, but the principles are still true. We really want to make sure that you understand what you're doing and how to be a human using this tool, not to send somebody 5 messages 5 minutes apart.
I'm so interested in this. Let me understand your role into the acquisition of this micro SaaS company product. Like, are you currently an owner of the company?
Yeah.
Are you a co-owner or 100% owner?
Yeah, co-owner. So the company I acquired, I brought the founder on as a partner.
Okay.
He did. So I like to, at least in this stage of what I'm looking to acquire, like product-led founders or technical founders who really, really understand what they've built. They just might have struggled on the sales and marketing side or just hit a wall and don't know how to get it past that wall. And I found somebody who was amazing at the marketing side, amazing at the sales side. He was just operationally didn't have the experience. He's a very young guy. So I was able to come in with, hey man, I just had to do X amount of deals for this real estate firm that I have limited experience doing, but we were able to achieve all these huge project at scale. I believe if we just combine those same practices and operational systems here, we're going to go really far. And let me just get you out of your own way, in the nicest way possible. And he was all for it. He saw where the bottleneck was. And we had stayed in touch throughout quite some time because I had originally reached out to him looking for a tool like this. So he knew I was familiar and, I believed in him. I believed in the product he built. It was just a matter of I needed to put the resources around him for him to be as successful as possible. And that's essentially what we embarked on doing. And it's been about 16 months now. Company's profitable, doing an amazing job, seeing consistent month over month growth. And really no major blow up. So taking something, rebranding it and stabilizing it is something I'm really, really proud of because I don't again come from a shop that does this. I kind of read a book. It was like, I think this is doable.
Can we shout him out?
Yeah, his name's Daniel Wax. He's amazing. You could probably see him just as much as you see me on LinkedIn.
If you're watching this, Danny, thanks so much for connecting us together. Yeah. Danny's the one that introduced me to Zack, so that's how we got connected.
Isn't that his LinkedIn, like people connector or connecting good people to good people? See, the branding's working. That's in my mind.
He is a sales machine.
Yeah,
Zack, I have no doubt that you're an OG business developer and salesman, but But if you comment on something from Danny Wax or you send him a message, he's calling your phone in 5 minutes.
Oh no,
Like
he's an animal, and he does it. He's just a pro. That's what's so cool about him being so young, is he's like naturally figured it out, and with some great guidance. And so something that I did that's really unique to a startup is I put together a board. We're not a huge company. We're not doing billions of dollars, but I did want governance. So I put together a board of people who have been there and done that on the tech side, on the acquisition side, on all the above. So I structured it for not only for myself, but for my partner, Danny, so that we have crash dummies around us who can say like, hey, I don't know if I would do that. Here's why. So two young guys who, might be thick-headed at times, when you're bullish on something, it's hard to see the next step as, being problematic. So I intentionally did that because both of us are young, up and coming leaders, but I am very aware that I don't know everything.
How often is the board involved in your decisions, and how often do you meet and stuff? That seems like it would really appeal to a lot of my clients.
At least once a month. I speak to some of them more frequently than others, just based on their area of expertise or the need at that time. And then there's others that are just more of, hey, listen, like, you have my Rolodex, or I'm a resource. And then we have some original investors who are more in the silent partners, but they are experts in their own right. Where they come in is when we're ready to exit this business, is they're going to go ahead and step into the role of, let's position the company for the exit and get that roadshow going. So whether it's coming from my network or theirs, they're going to be assisting in that process.
Apologies in advance for what my mom tells me I asked too direct of questions since I went to law school. But do you pay those advisors with?
No.
Okay.
No. I because I had to come in a really creative way. Again, this wasn't an outright I buy Danny's business. Yeah. We figured out a really creative way to partner together. And the way that I posed it to him and he agreed was like, look, we need people who have done this around us. We don't have the bankroll to fund it. We don't have the cash flow to fund it. Let's carve out a small equity piece and then bring in experts and offer them equity based on milestones or level of participation. And that's what we did. So we kind of incentivized people with equity in the business.
I see. So you've got this, that's an issue that a lot of startup founders and deal makers face, where they are, I get told this every day, right? I have somebody who's really smart in the business. I'm nervous about going out on my own. I'm going to give them 10% equity starting out, so they'll have some skin in the game, and then they never hear from the person again, right? So I'm always trying to safeguard that, but by associating, the equity grants with milestones and levels of participation, that's a good way to solve for that issue.
Yeah. In a unique position I was in is two of the folks on my board, I just went through an acquisition at that cannabis company. So we had a ton of experience going through a rebrand. And so I was felt comfortable bringing them on, and they're obviously amazing at what they do because we just had a huge, tremendous success together as a team. So, and the other founder was somebody who was monitoring that, and actually was somebody I met throughout that acquisition process for the cannabis company, who just took a liking to me. So he wanted to stay in touch. It evolved to him becoming a founder or partner on our board, And then Danny brought some really great people to the table from his previous business. And one of them ended up sticking around and becoming a board member for our company as well. So it was all through proximity. We did do a vetting process, but I didn't go out and blast randoms. I just had built a bench of people that I trusted and had worked with. And although I continue to build that bench, I likely will continue to work with people that I have executed with in the past because we've proven it.
I know, Sarah, you and I have talked about the consulting for equity before. I mentioned I've got 2 deals now where I'm going to be taking a minority equity position to consult. I think it's a really cool thing to put together a personal board of directors. I do think it has to be done very carefully. But man, can it really accelerate you? So Zach, I know you mentioned working with people you had done deals with in the past, or people that you know well. If you were just to put it out there, if someone's hearing this and they're thinking, I'm really lonely, I'm trying to do this alone, I don't know what I don't know, and they want to go and seek out some their personal board, what should they look for, whether it's in their personal network or on LinkedIn?
Where I would start is you have to quickly identify what you're an expert in or where you're strong in, and then immediately start plugging the holes of, listen, if you're not good with accounting, find somebody who is, even if it's short term, or pay somebody if you're not going to bring in, that quote unquote, that board member. But that's the beauty of LinkedIn, is you can go and you can find a lot of retired folks who have been through acquisitions or exited companies who have that experience, that are more than likely willing to at least take a phone call and answer some questions. And if you build a relationship or stay in touch, that person is now a candidate for whatever you're embarking on, because they've proven it. You guys now have a personal relationship. They're taking your calls. That's a big deal. So that's where I would probably start, is look around friends and family, but go find somebody who's been there, done that in the area that you suck at, which is hard to admit sometimes. Every solopreneur wants to be the man. I have been there. But if you want to go far, I call them a river guide. You just got to find somebody who knows where that problem is coming up and can say, hey, here's my advice, take it or leave it. Or they'll let you fall on your face, and then they'll remind you, like, hey, this is my advice. And then you start to respect their opinion a little bit more. But that's the whole point of bringing on the board, is you don't have to like what they say, but you should very, very, you should be mindful to it, because they've seen this thing a million times, and you're, young grasshopper essentially.
I mean, I can definitely endorse that advice. And if anybody's listening to this and feels any kind of doubt, trust me, just try it. Go try it. I don't know. I'm not going to try to sell you on it.
I'm thinking of all the people who pick my brain, and I'm so happy to talk about buying and selling accounting practices, because that's my jam. And I'm like,
I hit up Sara Sharp with no idea how to do deals, and I didn't give her a retainer. I just had a 30-minute discovery call, and now she's my podcast co-host.
I do it all the time, so maybe something will eventually come of it.
Absolutely. Startup CEOs, venture capitalists, investors. I mean, I have calls with people all the time, just because I just hit them up. I message them like a human. I ask for help, and they reach back out. Influencers, don't even be afraid if somebody's got 100,000 plus followers. Like, they're inundated with these, like, BS pitch slaps and robo messages all day long. Hit them up like a person. I bet you they respond.
This is now the first time I've heard pitch slap, and I love it so much. Zach, when you said it earlier, I was like, I've got to write that down.
Yeah. Do we need to bleep that out? Might as well. So people are like, what did he say?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It just feels like, and you get this message that's 5 paragraphs, and then they spell your name wrong, and then they ask what you do, and you're like, dude, did you even look at my profile? It drives me nuts. So it's a bot, or you see things misspelled, and you're like, hey man, whoever's running your technology sucks. You should let us take a stab at it.
Well, you've got the same you've got the H issue that my name has too, where you're like, don't put an H on Zach, don't put an H on Sara.
Could be anything.
Literally right there. It's in my email address.
We've covered so much ground, from building a business, selling a business, putting deals together, micro SaaS. I think we could probably have a whole episode on just how to find SaaS acquisition, because everybody's talking about boring businesses. Boring businesses have become popular now. Now we have to go back the other way and do the unpopular thing and buy SaaS companies. But Zach, I mean, I'm a big fan of SelfDisrpt. I love it. It's probably sending people messages and connection requests for me right this very second. So big fan. I know, and I know how it is in SaaS. Like, I know everything is kind of like stealth until it happens, gets big announcements. But what comes next? Are you looking to buy more different companies? Are you bolting on more? Like, what's next in the world of acquisitions for Zack Toyota?
It's a bit of a mix of buy and build, and just straight up build and scale. Now that we've had a success, some of our board has been keen on, hey, let's potentially go on a spending spree and buy the next thing. And then we have done a really good job building up cash reserves, or we could potentially go and pay for building the next thing internally, which would be amazing, because again, it's just keeping more IP in-house. And the way that I view the next thing is, I want to build the tools that founders and startups are going to need in 2030. My business partner is in the same boat. So we're trying to find tools in the automation, sales enablement, marketing enablement, anything with AI that effectively helps accelerate the sales process. We really truly believe in that business development and growth tools are going to be the next wave. Startups are no longer going to take bets on paying somebody $40,000 a year to try to figure it out. They're going to spend $1,500 a month to have a badass tech stack that figures it out for them. And now they just need to find somebody who's really good at doing the demo or taking the original sales call, or they can do it themselves because it saves them so much time. Those are the things that I personally use. So when I find something I use every day and I'm like, man, this is really interesting, and I use it more than a month, then I start thinking, how can I do this? How can I build this thing on my own? Or I reach out to the founders and I get to know them. And I ask sometimes, like, hey, what's your plan here? You want to exit? Keep me in mind. And, you know, again, just being candid and brash about asking questions, but in a professional way, you know, acting as if, you know, we're all growing here and it's not predatory, or like, I'm not a shark, but I am trying to scale my portfolio and make a lot of money and have fun while I'm doing it. So I'm very clear on that.
If people are interested in SelfDisrpt, or they want you on their personal board of directors, where can they find you? Where can they find SelfDisrpt? How can they give you money?
Find me on LinkedIn, Zack Toyota. It's not hard to mess that one up unless you spell the Zack with an H. But we covered that earlier in the pod, so hopefully they get
Zack with a K.
That one. Yeah, mitigated that right away. And if not, you could find us on LinkedIn. That's our bread and butter. Our whole, you know, our business thrives on that platform, and we'll continue to do so for a long time.
And I'll have links to SelfDisrpt and Zack, to your profile, in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this, just look in the description, the show notes below. You'll be able to find all those links.
I think this is the best first episode to have Dealmakers as the title, because Zack, you have really run the gamut on making deals and really making them. You know, creating them somewhat out of thin air.
I probably would have put more thought into the rebrand in the first episode after the rebrand if we didn't have the ultimate Dealmaker. I'm just gonna keep fluffing him up.
Yeah. Very impressive. Very impressive. Thank you for taking the time. It was great talking to you.
I really appreciate both your time, and thank you so much for having me on the new branded Dealmaker podcast.
I guess. All right. So this has been episode 13. Episode 1, I don't know 13. How this works anymore.
We're not going back to square one.
We covered so much, from building businesses, buying businesses, doing deals, putting not pitch slapping people, risk assumptions, so much great, so much nuggets here to learn from. Thanks so much, Zack. And if you got any value from this episode, please like, subscribe, let us know what you'd like for us to talk about next. Drop us a comment, and we're all on LinkedIn. Thanks.
We are.
Big, I gotta make it just for my kids, and for their kids, it's kids. That's wealth, years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out to finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than